Hey everybody, we are live. Welcome to another edition of Boston Straight Shooters. I'm your host for the evening, Steve, aka Negative Ned. Frank is away on business, so as usual, I'll do my best to hold the fort down while he's gone. And this is the show we talk about the Celtics, the Bruins, the Red Sox, and the Patriots, and we'll get you all caught up to date with the goings on. Right now, I'm going to post a link for everybody so that you guys can join the show, and we're going to get things started. And seeing as how the Bruins and the Bruins. Hold on. Sorry about that little glitch. Seeing as how the Bruins and the Patriots and the Celtics really aren't doing much, I'm going to start with the Bruins first. Just um, a quick, a quick synopsis of the. This is the wicked early. Give me a second here. This is the Bruins wicked early depth chart. I saw a few different depth charts with some different things, and do not like what I'm seeing on those depth charts. I'm very frustrated. Some of the guys that they signed that are, you know, AHL guys, looks like they're going to stay in the AHL, and I hate that. And so when I start talking about the line combinations that I saw, maybe we can get some of you guys' feedback and your thoughts, even though it's early. And let me get started. So obviously, I think the first two lines are pretty much cemented. We're looking at Morgan Geekie on left wing with Elias Lindholm at center and David Pastrnak on the right. That's the projected top line right now. The second line has Pavel Zacha on left wing with Casey Middlestat at center and Victor Arvidsson on right wing. Those guys are your top six guys. The frustration for me comes from the bottom six, where I saw Tanner Jeannot, Sean Kuraly, and Matt Poitras. I don't like that at all. Why do I have to have Sean Kuraly and Tanner Jeannot on the third line? Those guys are fourth line muckers and grinders. I don't like that. But before I go any further, let's do the fourth line I saw, which is Mikey Isamont, John Beecher, and Mark Kostelik. Now, look, that's probably a pretty solid line. Danny talks of obtaining Jordan Kyrou. Believe that when I see it. I don't know how much he makes, but it would be a nice addition if they could. And Mason McTavish, I don't know who he is either, but you know, they got to get some top six. They got to get another top six guy, or at least a guy that will fit in the third line that can score. These guys, you know, like we said when they signed them, you got like 8 guys fighting for 3 spots. Really, I'm discouraged because 2 guys that they signed from the AHL, Alex Steves from Toronto was in their on their AHL team, and he scored 36 goals last year. And Matej Blumel, I forget which team he was on. I had it here, but I erased those notes from a while ago. But that's a guy that scored 39 goals, or vice versa. These guys are 35, 30, 40 goal scorers, and they're not projected to crack this team's lineup for a team that badly needs scoring. I don't understand what the hell the Bruins do when they get these guys. They constantly get talented guys, and they bury them. And I have to think it's because they're not complete two-way players. And that's wicked irritating to me. I can't stand it. And I really wish guys like that would get a shot. I mean, why do I have to be forced to watch, you know, Jeannot, Kuraly, Isamont, Beecher, and Kostelik taking up valuable real estate on the roster and on the third line when you desperately need scoring and you have 2 guys that you signed. And look, I understand they have to prove it at the NHL level, but if they don't have an opportunity and they get buried, and this is constant Bruins for 45 plus years, they have a guy, he's in the AHL, they bring him up, they bury him on the fourth line, he scores 1 goal in 11 games, they send him back to AHL. Can you guys like change it up a little bit? Can you guys do something different? Can you guys give these guys a real shot? And I understand that they want to be tougher to play against, but a whole roster full of muckers and grinders is not going to do it for them. They're not going to win games if they have that without talent. So I have a pretty big frustration right now, and we're not even talking about some of the other guys. Fraser Minton, who was acquired from Toronto, he's probably going to wind up in the AHL, and Husnudinov, another guy that's supposed to be a talented guy, he's probably going to wind up in the minors too. So again, this is wicked early. I'm hoping that some things change. I'm hoping that they can do a few different things and give these guys, Steves and Plumel, a legit shot. I mean, David Pasternak, spoke to Plumel and, what's the word I'm looking for? Recruit. He recruited this guy to sign here and say, hey, we need scoring. We think you have a legit shot. Sign here. And then I look at the depth chart, and it's freaking 5-6 muckers and grinders, 5 muckers and grinders, and Patra. And what is Patra going to do with those guys? He's a talented guy. He's stuck with two stiffs, another wasted talent. I mean, that's not how that should work. The third line I would have is Matt Patra between Steves and Blumel. That's what I would have for a third line, and try to get some use out of the talent for these guys, and get some goal scoring. And understand it's not going to be perfect. Let's see, Danny. Sturm is going to have a long leash with the players, so hopefully that will work. Well, I agree with you. I mean, he had success in the AHL last few years, and he's worked well with the young guys, and I'm hoping that he can get more out of these guys and put them in and get these stiffs on the bench where they belong. I don't need to see Isamont just running around hitting people all day. And Tanner Jeannot, who scored, 7 goals. I want to say Jeannot, Corrali, Isamont, Beecher, and Costello combined for like 25 goals total, like an average of like 6 goals each or something. That's horrible. And look, I wanted the Bruins to get bigger and tougher before last season when they got pushed around by Florida. And they got 2 guys that fit the bill. I've talked about this enough. They got Kostelic and they got Zadorov. So they have beef, and the game is changed. And it's not like the old days in the 80s when, you would bring up the goons from Providence and, you had 4 or 5 guys out there just gooning it up fighting. These guys have to have skill and they have to be able to play. They can't just be out there mucking it up all game long, gooning it up. And they can't be too slow either. And I understand, Florida's dirty, gritty, in front of the net. They poke, jab, push, whatever. You have to have guys that can push back and match them. But not like this. This looks too much like 80s slow, old, bruises. And I don't think it's going to work. I don't understand the thought process here. And I do get Don Sweeney's comments because I read them here a couple of weeks ago, and he said, look, we were too easy in some of the games. And I get that. They do need to be tougher to play against. But half your roster can't be, 6'4", 220 and just, hitting people hit people through the boards and no goals. That's not going to work. So I'm curious. Again, it's wicked early. Training camp's not until like September or late August. So there's a lot of time to really dive into this. But when I read these depth charts from multiple sites, and Steves and Blumel are buried on most of them, I don't like that. I'm wicked pissed off that those guys are going to wind up in Providence when they shouldn't. All right, I'm off the early depth chart soapbox. I do want to mention one thing I saw recently that I found interesting regarding Jeremy Swayman that I did not know. And this may have been reported and I missed it, but I just read something somewhere that back in November of 2024, Edmonton Oilers did call Don Sweeney about Jeremy Swayman's availability because they were looking to acquire him in a trade, and Sweeney Sweeney gave them a harsh no. So it's apparent that when they signed him, they believe that he's the guy for the future, and so we'll have to see what happens. I mean, I've said a number of times on here that I would trade him before his no trade clause kicks in, and clear that $8 million off the books so you can sign a real scorer instead of having Arvidsson or whoever it is they got there. But listen, hopefully, now that they're kind of stuck with him, that he turns things around and is the number one guy that they signed, and his play reverts back to a few years ago. So I just wanted to quickly put that out there that Edmonton did call earlier. I know there was some talk at the trade deadline, but it's also a salary cap issue for them now because they have to sign Connor McDavid, and he could get anywhere between 14 and 18 million, or maybe even more, with the salary cap going up next year. The salary cap, I think, is going up by almost 10 million next year, so he could chew into a big chunk of that for them. Anyway, what was Edmonton Oilers giving up? Yeah, that wasn't mentioned in what I read, what they were going to give up for Swayman. So I don't have that information. It's probably like a second tier scorer and a draft pick, if I had to guess. And it's a guy that probably makes, I don't know, maybe $6-7 million. If it was one of their second line guys, or even like a third line guy that scored 20 goals. And again, I don't have that information in front of me, but I'll have to look it up and see if I can find it. But anything less than, if they just traded Swayman and they got back their top AHL prospect and a draft pick, I don't know if I'd be satisfied with that, because the Bruins bury all the prospects. I mean, if you don't get the guys and use them, what good is it? They need a legit top 6 replacement in order to trade Jeremy Swayman. And that goes for any deal they make with any team, not just the Oilers. They got to get back, scoring. They got to get back a 25, 30 goal guy. That's my opinion. So we'll see what happens. I mean, there's a long way to go. A lot can happen. People can get hurt. So stay tuned. Right now I'm going to switch gears. We're going to switch gears and we're going to talk about the Celtics, because again, I'm gonna quickly breeze through this a little bit. They are in the summer league right now. I forget how many games they play. I think it's, I don't know, 5 or something, or 10. I don't know exactly, but I do know that they played 3 games. I don't remember what their record is. I think they're 1-2. But I just wanted to talk about the little bit that I saw. I watched one of the games last week. I missed yesterday's game. And the game I saw, Baylor Shireman, who was a number 1 pick a couple of years ago, was supposed to be, the Sam Hauser replacement, so to speak. He was horrible in the game I saw. I think he was like 2 of 13. He was just throwing stuff up. I don't know what he was doing, but he didn't look that good, in my opinion. And those might not have been his final numbers, but that's the part of the game I saw that for the numbers that he had. This last game that they just played yesterday, they lost to the Miami Heat, and he was 7 of 19. I think he had 19 points. He was 4 for 13 from 3-point range. He had 9 assists, so slightly better. I'm not liking the low 3-point percentage stuff, because he's got to be able to match what Sam Howell's can do. And I understand it's a summer league. You're not playing against, everybody's playing stiffs, kind of, and it's kind of like street ball almost, the way I saw it. So can't call him a bust yet, like Fabian Lysell and the Bruins, but I'd like to see some improved play from him. If he's going to be a contributor here in the next couple of years. I also saw Hugo Gonzalez, who was the number 1 pick this year. He's 19 years old, right? He's from Spain or Portugal. He was 3 of 12 yesterday, 1 of 7 from 3. And I know he can shoot better than that. So, again, we'll be looking for some improvement there. He did have 10 points and 7 rebounds. And the game I saw a couple games ago, he can pass. He made a few nice passes to some guys for some buckets. So, again, there's a guy that's got potential. But these guys, well, not Shireman, but I think Gonzalez is probably going to start in the G League if I had to guess. And so it's good for his development. Jordan Walsh, I saw in the game. He was good. He was good in that game, playing against his peers, so to speak, likewise talent. And he's a high energy guy. With the departures that they had of Porzingis and Holiday, it remains to be seen if he can get more minutes this year and be more of a contributor. He does bring energy, so that's going to be something that they're going to need off the bench. And there's a couple guys here that are playing in the summer league, and this guy caught my eye. Kenny Lofton Jr. I don't know if he's related to Kenny Lofton from the Cleveland Indians. I kind of doubt it. I didn't have a chance to look. But this guy reminded me of Charles Barkley, 6'6", 275. And he's a bruiser. He was getting offensive rebounds. He was hustling. He was getting points. That's a guy I'd like to see them find a way to keep him in the G League, and then maybe they can get something out of him during the season. I mean, I was impressed with the little bit I saw out of him. So I'm curious about him now. That's one guy, and then there's another guy here that I didn't get to see play, but I did read about him a little bit. Charles Bassey. He's a big man. He's 6'10", 235 pounds. He's not a bruiser. He's kind of, light for an inside guy. But, he's got some NBA experience. He played with the Spurs last year. And in the most recent game that they played 2 games ago, 22 points, 13 rebounds, 3 blocks. And then yesterday he had 10 points, 8 rebounds on 4 of 7 shooting. And the report on him is he could be a solid rebounder and rim protector. His chances of signing actually hinge on the summer league performance. And when I read that reminds me a little bit of Robert Williams, who the Celtics traded away because of injury problems, plus the return they got back was better. But that's a guy to me that, again, can they sign him and put him in the G League? And I don't know all the roster, how many guys they can keep and how many two-way contracts they can have. I don't have any of that information. I know Frank would be able to dive into that a little more, and maybe for the next go around, or as we get closer, I'll dive more into that so that I can get an understanding of what they're allowed. But to me, 2 guys right here, Bassey and Kenny Lofton, 2 guys I'd be interested to see if they could make it in the G League and stick, and then come in at some point if needed, and provide something. I mean, I think that the Celtics are probably still looking for a big man. I know they have 4, and I talked about it last week. I'm fine with the 4 guys they got. I know that they're not, household names or whatever. But sometimes guys just need opportunity. And, I've said on here for a while now, I'm really curious to see what Neemias Queta can do in an expanded role. And again, he's not going to play 40 minutes to get you 30 points and, 15 rebounds, but can he play 15 to 20 minutes? Can he get you, 8, 10 points and 10, 12 rebounds, 8, 10 rebounds? Can he get a double-double? Can he get 8 points and 10 rebounds? Like, can he improve and do something defensively for them and get some rebounds and even offensive rebounds? I mean, they need a younger guy that's energetic, and this is no knocks on Al Horford or Porzingis, right, who's injury prone. Al Horford, love what he did here. I don't see him coming back. He's 39. He probably doesn't want to play for a team that's quasi rebuilding without Jason Tatum. I think if Jason Tatum was healthy, I think there's a better chance he would come back. But without that, I think that he's probably looking to go somewhere else to a contender. I know it's been rumored that the Lakers are on his list or retirement, but you can't expect Al Horford to play 30 to 35 minutes a game anymore at 39 years old and carry the load. He won't be able to do it. So, again, the jury's still out on what the Celtics are going to do as far as getting a big man. I've seen some rumors about them trading Simons, the kid they just picked up, and trying to get rid of his $27 million cap hit and getting another big guy. Depending upon what they can get back, I would be okay with that because they're never going to have enough big guys. It's just not. I'm glad that they took the rookie with the second round pick. Again, it wasn't the guys I thought they were going to get when they traded back, but they did get a guy. And, again, hopefully, he'll get some G League time. We'll see what he can do. So, apologies for the skimpy summer league scouting report. I know Frank has watched a bunch of games, probably not just the Celtics either. So he has a lot more insight than I do. And maybe when he's back, we can ask him what he's seen from the Celtics, from his perspective. I can only give you the little bit that I got. I think they're playing tomorrow night. I'd be curious to see if they're on, because I would definitely watch them. There's no baseball now; everything's dead. So I'm curious to see. Sometimes they're on and sometimes they're not. So I'm definitely intrigued. I want to see these young guys and see what they can do. Other than that, it's pretty quiet. So I'm going to move on. I think that there's plenty to talk about with the Red Sox. So we're going to jump into them right now. The Red Sox are currently on the All-Star break. They're not due to restart until Friday after having a 10-game winning streak and putting themselves in the third wildcard spot. And they have a gauntlet coming up the next 9 games. They have 3 at Chicago Cubs, 3 at Philadelphia Phillies, and 3 at home against the Dodgers. And I tried to look into who the starters were going to be for the majority of those games, and I only got as far as Philly, because I don't know if 9 days out they'll list who the starters might be. But I found it interesting that Lucas Giolito is going to be first out of the gate, and he's going against a guy from the Cubs that's 7-3. Now, I don't know how this is because I didn't get a chance to dive into this, but they have the site that I saw had Jose Bayo listed as the starter for Saturday's game. I'm hoping that that's Brian Bayo and not Jose, because I'm like, who the hell is Jose Bayo? Was that his brother? I'm hoping that's a misprint. And he's going against Shota Imanaga. He's a Japanese phenom guy they signed. He's got a 6-3 record with a 2.63 ERA. And then Sunday, Garrett Crochet's pitching, so they may have a shot at getting 2 wins here, but I say it's more likely they get just 1. That's my guess. They're playing first place teams. They're not playing bums anymore. And sometimes, and it's a crappy time for the Red Sox to have a break when you're on a 10-game winning streak, because now you lose a little bit of momentum. I'm going to take a stab and say that that's the case here, is that they'll lose a little bit of the juice that they gained before the break. And that's unfortunate because, things were looking good for them. They were getting good starting pitching. They were getting, 7, 8, 9 innings out of these guys. The bullpen looked good. They weren't overused, overtaxed. And so, the Red Sox starters need to continue to give minimum 6 innings work. If they don't, and it's 4 or 5 innings and the bullpen starts getting overused, it's going to be the same results. And look, it's across Major League Baseball. It's not just a Red Sox issue. I know that I harpoon them a lot, zing them a lot for shopping an Ocean State job lot, but I do catch some other games here and there, and guys are already at 100 pitches in the fourth and fifth inning, and they're not lasting. They're not lasting the way that they used to. So um, I just hope that whatever tweaks that they made before this winning streak, they keep them and they're effective and it works. And we'll see how it goes. But they have to do that. They still have to get the timely hits. They still have to not strike out double-digit times in the game, 10, 12, 14. They got to minimize that to 7, 5, 7, 8, whatever. Can't have those. They still need to get the timely hits they were getting with men on base. And we'll see. I just think that it's tough, and I'll give them some credit for sweeping Tampa Bay because Tampa Bay was ahead of them, and Tampa Bay is in a little bit of a free fall. They're struggling. I want to say they were 2-11 or 3-11 or something going into the Red Sox series, so they weren't playing well. So the Red Sox caught a break where a pretty good team was in a slump, and they took advantage. That's encouraging to see. And also, I think we talked last week that it's encouraging that they swept the Nationals and they swept the Rockies, Colorado, which is basically a AAA team. I don't know how they're in the major leagues with the roster they have. I mean, I couldn't name you one guy right now on their team, which is sad. But they were losing those games earlier in the year. They lost 2 out of 3 to Chicago, who was one of the worst teams, like in May or whatever. That can't happen anymore going forward. So, everybody got all goofy when they swept the Yankees earlier, and then they traded Devers, and they started out 3-8 without Devers, and the sky was falling, and then they went on this run. So, they all, and my coworkers and I, they were when the Red Sox swept the Yankees. Oh my God, they swept them! I'm like, they always sweep the Yankees in June, but they never sweep them in September when they need to. In August and September. So, they got to play good ball, mistake-free as possible. I mean, they're still making errors, which is frustrating. They're making fewer of them, but they're still making some of them. And, but I think it's getting better. And that's the key. And so I think, and this is just me because I think what they did is I think they not just tweaked the pitching, and I'll get to that in a second, but I think they tweaked the hitting, and I think they went to the drive line guys, those bums, and just went away from it. I think Alex Cora has been around long enough to know that you got to play small ball. You gotta play small ball, and you got to bunt. You got to do things. You can't do it the way they were doing it. This crap about the launch angle and, all this other baloney doesn't work. You don't get hits that way. I'm watching these guys. They're driving the ball more to the opposite field. They're getting timely hits. They're driving the ball. All stuff that's like basic. I mean, when Roman Anthony first got here, obviously, 2 for 14. He was hitting 128 at one point, or 114, or whatever it was. And now he's like one of the hottest guys. Saddam Rafaela, on fire. I mean, something's definitely changed with their approach. They're not swinging and missing as much. They're not striking out as much. They're hitting the ball better. And, maybe also it's Alex Bregman because, I've been listening to some things where the younger guys, he's giving the younger guys help, in the dugout, in the batting cage, and I even heard that, he helped Trevor Story a little bit too. And for a guy like Trevor Story, that's like a 10-year veteran or whatever he is, and utilize Bregman's information, that's how it's supposed to work. That's how it should work. The veterans should be helping each other. They should be helping the young guys. The the coach, the hitting coach, and the players all have to be on the same page. And also another thing I heard is because the driveline guys just take like a computer and have like one size fits all, one model for everybody. Everybody's gonna uppercut swing. Everybody's gonna launch angle. Everybody. The pitcher, the hitting coach, I heard, and I've heard this before too. That every guy has different nuances to him, so they work on their footwork and their hand placement, and I think they've changed a little bit more to individualized coaching, so to speak, which was always the way. Everybody always, if you look at, uh, and I'm showing my age here, but if you've been a Red Sox fan for over 40 years, you know who Walt Riniak is, and he was the hitting guru around here. He was the man, and he worked individually with everybody to maximize them and not just be like, all right, well, everybody just do it this way. And that's how these young computer-driven bots operate. They're just like one size fits all. Everybody do it this way, and everybody have a launch angle, and we don't worry about the strikeouts. But then, you strike out when there's guys on base. You strike out 15 times a game. It's horrible. I understand. The fans want home runs, but at what price? You can hit 3 home runs in a game and still lose the game. Versus, how many times have they been up with the bases loaded or second or third with nobody out or one out, and it's all this launch angle strikeout crap, and they get nothing out of it. Bunting, nobody bunts anymore. It's almost invisible. So you can't freaking move a runner from second to third on a bunt down the first base line or whatever. That's brutal too. That's part of the game. It's an important part of the game to be able to, small ball, sacrifice a guy over, all right, there's no outs, guy on second, bunt, depending on who's up. Now, obviously, if the mashes are up, you don't do that. Like, David Ortiz isn't going to bunt. But the lower guys that I see, David Hamilton, dude should know how to bunt because he barely gets on. Maybe a guy like Rafael needs to learn how to bunt. Jaron Duran. I mean, there's guys that have capability to bunt should use it. And Duran, I know I've seen him bunt before for a base hit, and I've seen Hamilton bunt for a base hit. So those guys kind of know how to bunt, but they don't utilize it enough to make it a weapon or a tool to score more runs. And so those are the kind of things that need to change, and I hope they keep it that way. I hope they don't revert back. Listen, Alex Cora is on the hot seat. I think if they don't make the playoffs this year, he's in danger of losing his job. They may not want to pay his salary, $7 million a year to dump him, but I don't think that they're going to accept another, 4th or 5th place finish and no playoffs. So I think that for him, he's saying, hey, you guys want us to do the fundamentals. If you're not teaching them in Worcester, and we got to teach them here, then we're going to do it, and we're going to change things up, and we're not going to use driveline, and we're not going to use any of that nonsense. I do want to do, the first half. I do want to do a little bit of the first half. Listen, they're going to go up and down. It's not perfect. They're going to have slumps again. They're going to have, a 5-game losing streak. Hopefully not, but a 3-game losing streak. They're going to have them still. But then can they rebound and get another 5, 6, 10 win streak? They have to have longer winning streaks than the losing streaks. So let's say they lose 3 in a row. All right, they bounce back. They got to win 5 in a row. It can't be 2 or 3, or you're 500 the rest of the way. And so for them to make the playoffs right now, they're on pace for 86 wins, but they need to get to 90 minimum, in my opinion. And they need to play, somewhere between 590 and 600 baseball to get there. And so we'll see. I mean, I'm glad that I'm happy for the guys that made the All-Star team. I'm glad that Crochet took himself out and didn't try to pitch in the game. He basically said, hey, I'm worried about my workload. And the Tat, to me, is doing what's best for the team. That's good. That's a good sign because they need him. They actually have finally an ace on the staff, which we've been hopping on. It remains to be seen if they're going to add at the deadline. I know there's a lot of talk that they're going to add. And the last 2 years, they got too wishy-washy, and they got all these bums, James Paxton, whatever. They got to get real pitching. I want them to add a pitcher. I know Duran is part of the trade talks. I don't really want to get rid of him because he's the only speed guy they have, really, other than Rafaela. But if it meant you could get a guy like Joe Ryan from Minnesota, then I would probably do it because having that extra guy at the top of the rotation is more valuable, and they'll find a way to replace Duran's production. I mean, he's not having as good a year as he had last year. But, what I would miss about him is, last week he hit a ball, ran down to first, the guy's bobbled the ball, he's on second, then they did something goofy, and he's on third base. I mean, he reminds me of Ellsbury, and those guys don't grow on trees. That's an element that they've rarely had. So that would bug me a smidge. If they traded him and didn't get back a guy like Joe Ryan, a top starter. If they get back, a James Paxton kind of guy, and you trade Jarren Duran, I'm going to be pissed off. I don't want any more Ocean State job. I don't want any waffling and wishy-washy nonsense from you, Craig Breslow. We want real guys coming in. So, overall, it's encouraging that they won 10 in a row, and hopefully they can keep it going. They do, I think, also need to upgrade first base. I don't know how they're going to do that. I mean, I think that the Gonzalez and Toro over there as a split utility type thing is okay, Mets and Mets, but it's not good enough to be playoffs. They got to upgrade that position somehow and get guys that can field, because those two guys cannot field that position. I know Toro made a great play against Tampa when he threw out the guy at home. I'll give him kudos for that, but there's been, way more blunders and missed, scoops and whatever at first base, and more errors from him and more errors at third than there have been those kind of highlights. I mean, if he was picking the ball and making highlights at first base all the time and he wasn't hitting that good, I'd be fine with that. But he's not even doing that. So the hitting, and he's in a slump now over the last 10 or so games. So, again, that's a guy he's a part-time guy, and he's being forced into a full-time role. He's going to peter out. So if I had two things for the Red Sox right now to get, it would be a starting pitcher and a first baseman. And that goes to what Devers was saying to Breslow: do your job and get a real first baseman in here. It's kind of comical now to for me to be saying that they should be getting a first baseman, but he was kind of right. So we'll see. Other than that, let me give honorable mention too here to Wilyer Abreu. He has power I didn't know he had. 17 home runs at the break. That's a lot. I forget how many he hit last year. 18 maybe, 20. But if he can get into the 25 to 30 range, and he's a Gold Glove right fielder. I don't think he's playing Gold Glove right field this year, but Gold Glove last year. I mean, solid. I think he's pretty good. He's not a detriment to them in right field. And he gets you 25 homers this year, and he's a young guy. Was he 25? I mean, if he can do that, man, that's pretty damn good. I would take that. And that's a guy I would not want to see get traded at this point, because because other than Bregman, he's the only guy that's got pop. It's him, Bregman. Story has a little here and there when he's healthy. Rafaela is showing some power, but Rafaela, long term, he's not a 25 home run guy. To me, I don't see him being that kind of guy. But can he get you 15? Every year I would take that. But listen, everybody's all geeked up about all the new guys, and they're doing okay. But they need more playing time, and I would just pump the brakes a little bit. I mean, what's his name? Maya at second base. He's been pretty good in the field defensively at second base. He's just not hitting enough, and he needs to pick that up for them to also improve. But he's better than David Hamilton at second base. I'll say that right now. I'm glad he's got sent back to Worcester. I'm happy they didn't keep him on the roster. That was killing me that he was still here. A guy that's hitting $140 and making an error every game. He can't make routine plays. I'm done with him. I hope they trade him, cut him, release him, dump him. Just bye. I've had enough of him. He's done. I don't want to see him here anymore. Excuse me. All right. We're going to switch gears now. I'm watching the time, and I'm probably a little early, but that's okay. We're going to talk about the Patriots briefly. Excuse me. Let me find my notes here for them 1 second, because I heard something today that's pretty comical. Oh, man. I apologize. Okay. Apparently, this thing, this rift between Kraft and Belichick, the pettiness that's going on with these guys, they can't stop it. I don't know what the issue is with them. They're 70 or 80-year-old now. It reminds me of Grumpy Old Men and Grumpy Old Men with Walter Matthau and Jack. Crap, forget the guy's name. But if you're familiar with those movies, those guys were doing like all these mean pranks to each other daily, multiple times a day. And this is starting to remind me of these two grumpy old men just going at it with each other. Apparently, and I don't know when this was. I don't know if it was yesterday or the day before or whatever. Recently, Robert Kraft went on Julian Edelman's podcast. And I guess Gronk was on there. I don't remember what the name of it's called. But Gronk asked him what his best decision was. And he said getting Bill Belichick to come to the Patriots was the best decision. I gave up a number 1 draft pick for a coach who had only won a little over 40% of his games in 1999. It was a big risk, and I got hammered in the Boston media, but I think we did okay. So, yeah, he got hammered in the Boston media, right? We all were like, who's Belichick? Or we giving this bum coaching job for, blah, blah. But here's where the grumpy old men part comes in. Now Belichick had to chime in and have a retort. And he said, as I told Robert multiple times through the years, I took a big risk by taking the Patriots head coaching job. I already had an opportunity as the head coach of the Jets, but the ownership situation was unstable. And the reason it was unstable is because the owner, excuse me, Leon Hess, passed away. Leon Hess passed away, and it was before, right around the time Woody Johnson bought the team. And so he didn't want to stay there. And Belichick went on to say, I had been warned by multiple previous Patriots coaches, as well as other members of the NFL organizations and media, that the New England job was going to come with many internal obstacles. I made it clear that we would have to change the way the team was managed to regain the previously attained success. So, there's definitely no love lost between these two guys. The egos are yay big. I don't see what the purpose this serves either one of them at this point. I know that Belichick just came out with a book, right? It didn't mention Kraft in it once, right? So typical Belichick pettiness. We know how petty he is after 20-something years, the way he treated the players. And now it's like Kraft is doing the same thing. So, I don't understand where these guys are coming from. Bob Kraft's 84 years old. what is he? What is he lighting the fire for? I mean, I know he's already said most of this stuff about, getting Belichick in '99. It was the best decision he made. Blah blah. It's been said a gazillion times. But what is the purpose of this? These guys, I'm going to be waiting for them when Belichick gets inducted into Hall of Fame. I'll be curious if Robert Kraft shows up. And if they do, are they both going to be on this stage with canes fighting each other like swords over all this junk? I mean, this is ridiculous. And so the other thing, too, that has been mentioned a number of times is how, and we may have mentioned this, too, on here with Frank, how fake and staged the mutual parting of ways was, and how Kraft fired Belichick. Because now when Kraft talks about how they split, he says, I had to fire Bill, blah, blah. That's going to stick in Bill's craw, too. So I don't know how these guys patch any of this up. And I don't know how, honestly, I know Bill Parcells is getting in the Hall of Fame this year, right? But what about when it's Bill Belichick's time to get into the Patriots Hall of Fame? How is that going to go? I was thinking about the regular Hall of Fame. What about the Patriots Hall of Fame? How are these two guys going to act? They're going to do the same thing and just put the act on? I don't know. I kind of wish they'd just kind of stop all this crap. I mean, life's too short. These guys are getting old. They're beyond the back nine. They're like at the 19th hole. And they probably just need to sit down and have a couple drinks together and squash all this crap, because it's comical in a way. And I understand, look, there's nothing going on right now. It's probably a good time for them, and it's good for Boston sports and for us to have something to talk about while there's no baseball, hockey, football. There's nothing going on, basketball, right? But they need to find a way to limit this, this stuff and move forward, because it's a bad look. It's a bad look for both of them. I always thought, that Robert Kraft acted like more classy, right? And when he does stuff like this, it's like, dude, what are you doing? You're not supposed to be doing that. So I just thought it was funny that these guys are still taking shots. They're still throwing daggers, and they're still at each other. And again, good for sports, talk. But it's not a good look for either one of them. I mean, what does that look like for the people at North Carolina, where Belichick is now, for him to be throwing these out here? Because at some point, he's not going to be at North Carolina anymore. Is he going to be doing the same thing to, the AD there, or whoever's running the show? And what's that going to look like, when he's gone out the door there? I mean, I think we already know the answer because how petty he is, but still, this is like, it's kind of overkill. And I don't think it's necessary. So I just thought it was funny. That's all. So training camp starts next week. I think it starts on the 22nd or 23rd. So finally, we won't be talking about this anymore, hopefully, and we'll be talking about, the training camp and how it's going to go, and, who's doing what. I will say I was fortunate to go to training camp a few years ago. Actually, I've been fortunate to go twice. And the last time I went was when they had Thornton. Can't think of his first name right now. I'm drawing a blank. Thornton and Jesus. Wow, my memory's bad. Anyway, the wide receivers were killing it. They were running it, and you look at the speed they had during the training camp. They were catching all these long passes. Then the games came, and they couldn't do squat. So, I mean, it was interesting just watching them go through the drills and the type of stuff that they do with each group. So if you have a chance to go, to my knowledge, it's free to the public. And I would say be very careful in the sun. The first time I went, I got completely cooked. We were in the sun the whole time, and that part of it didn't turn out good, but it was fun. The crowd was lively. They were fun. It's a good take if you have small kids, you know, or kids in general, teenagers, whatever. I mean, the kids have a ball. They do a lot of, the players come over and sign autographs and stuff, and they do other things for the kids. So I just liked watching how they ran the practice and, the times of the stuff that they would do and stuff. And they had different groups going on and whatnot. It's definitely, we're definitely finally getting into football season now, which always comes quick. It kind of feels like they just finished playing Buffalo in the last game, and now we already got training camp next week. So it's gone by quick, and I know for a fact Frank is excited because he's got 12 wins for them. So it's gonna be good. I'm excited to see what they're going to look like and how they do move forward. I can't really expound anymore. There's nothing going on there for that. So we're going to move along now. I'm going to move along to the poll questions from last week. Let's do last week's poll questions right here. I believe we only had one. Do you think the Red Sox will keep winning after the All-Star break and make the playoffs? Yes, they're on fire, 16%. No, still not sold on them, 84%. So it's not just negative Ned. A majority of everybody thinks that they're not sold on them yet. We still need to see more. And, I think that's pretty accurate around here in general. From what I've heard on sports radio and people talking and whatnot, that they need to see more. So that's that. We did try to do something a little different, and we're going to try and keep doing this. I think is we're going to try top 5 because it was the All-Star break. We put out your top 5 best Red Sox All-Stars of all time. Mine were Kyle Yastrzemski, Wade Boggs, Pedro Martinez, Roger Clemens, and Fred Lynn. I picked those guys for a reason. I mean, Yaz is just, you can go back to Ted Williams, but I never saw him play. I'm just going by the guys I actually saw. Kyle Yastrzemski, 23 years here. He was, 18-time All-Star, whatever it is. He was just, he was the captain. He was everything for them. And, I remember as a kid, just wanting to watch him whenever he was in the All-Star game, just to see what he could do. I think we all did. We all tried to stay up, I think, as kids to watch him. Fred Lynn, also, same thing. I think I was like, 11 or 12 years old when he won the MVP. He was one of my favorite players until he left for California. Wade Boggs became my favorite player once he broke on, because of the way he was hitting. A guy that was hitting 360 regularly doesn't happen anymore. I know Aaron Judge is hitting like 355. That's rare. These guys don't hit like that anymore. Him and Tony Gwynn are, dinosaurs. They're a dying breed, and it's too bad. Pedro goes without saying, that 1999 All-Star game here at Fenway Park, legendary. With Ted Williams coming out, but Pedro, you can argue that him and Clemens are the best 2 pitchers in Red Sox history. I know that, Wood has a whole boat, Cy Young has, a whole boatload of wins and whatnot, but I'm talking about the guys I saw. Those 2 guys were at the top. Brian McWhinney, part of our group, had Williams, Yaz, Pedro, Clemens, and Ortiz. Again, hard to argue with his nominations. I mean, Ted Williams, again, he's a slam dunk. David Ortiz also, for everything he did here for, the clutch hitting, the world championships, and so forth. Can't argue with him either. And Dave Bent, who's also part of our group, he tried to do, because he did this, I couldn't do the second half of this question I wanted to do. He put in Dave Stapleton, Ed Romero, Denny Doyle, Phil Plantier, and Glenn Hoffman. And so there was gonna be your top 5 worst All-Stars of all time, and I didn't get to post it. Dave beat me to it, so I didn't bother after he did that. I did have some. Phil Plantier was in the list. I also had Kyle Crawford as part of that list, only because he was just such a bad dude. I mean, he was just angry all the time, and he was just kind of a mental case. Scott Cooper, guy was an all-star 2 years in a row as a third baseman. The Red Sox were so bad that they put in a guy at third in the all-star game just because every team had to be represented. And he, a guy that was hitting like 7 home runs, 11 home runs, batting .270, making the all-star game. That was horrible. Jose Offerman, he's another one. Awfulman, as I called him, as he deteriorated. He might have had a good half one year and deserved to go, but he wasn't one of my favorite guys. I had another guy, but I don't have it in front of me. But that question was gonna be part of this, not anymore. And we have now also your top 3 best and top 3 worst Red Sox players in the first half of the 2025 season so far. My top 3 best players are Garrett Crochet, Aroldis Chapman, and Ceddanne Rafaela. To me, those guys have been the best 3. I have honorable mention Wilyer Abreu. He's had some clutch hits. He's had a bunch of home runs. 17 home runs in the first half. So I put him in there. And then the worst 3 for me is Christian Campbell, Tanner Houck, Liam Hendricks. Christian Campbell, I know had one Rookie of the Year for April, but he went downhill quick after that, and now he's in Worcester. That's bust territory right now after Craig Breslow and company patted themselves on the back and nearly knocked themselves over, touting this guy, and he's not here anymore. So that's bad. That's a bad look. Tanner Houck, he's been injured. He was terrible when he was in. Need to see more from him. He's been a bust. Liam Hendricks, there's a guy that complained he wasn't getting any quality time in there, and the 2 times they put him in after he made those comments, he gave up home runs and lost them the game. Then he went on the DL. Now he's on the 60 DL with a hip injury. He's probably gone for the year, so he's a complete waste in my opinion. Honorable mention David Hamilton. Again, guys hitting 140, can't field second base, driving me crazy. And Chris Corsi, who's part of our group, had all the same top 3 except for one guy as the worst, and that's Connor Wong. And I definitely can't argue with him. I forgot all about him. He's hitting like, $105 with like 1 homer or 1 RBI or whatever he's doing. He's been horrible this year. I don't know what happened to him. He fell off a cliff bad. And the only reason he's here is they don't have another viable major league option, or he'd be in Worcester or he'd be gone. So that's a wrap on the weekly poll stuff. Now we're going to do the predictions. Last week's predictions. Yours truly, as usual, doesn't get them right. I said Marcelo Mayer was going back to AAA and that Rafaela was going to second base. Wrong. And Marcelo Mayer is still here. He has been playing second base. And Rafaela did play 1 game at second base, but I don't think he's going to be permanently starting there. So wrong again. Second one, Bruins will trade Eunice Corpusalo and not Pavel Zacha. Wrong. And nobody got traded. Nobody got moved. So there's 0 for 2. And number 3, I said the Celtics are going to sign or trade for another big man. Wrong. Didn't happen. I don't know if they're waiting until after the Summer League to make any more moves. So we'll have to wait and see. Denise was on with us last week. She's part of our group. And she said that the Celtics would trade for somebody, but didn't know who. Wrong. And she also said the Red Sox would trade for a pitcher. Wrong. So 0 for 5. None of us got any right. We need Frank the Swami back to get on track, because I'm definitely 0 for my last. I don't know how many now at this point. I stopped keeping count because there's too many of them. The losing streak continues. I'm worse than the Red Sox. The losing streak is bad. So this week we'll try to change that. I do have some ready, Frank. Believe it or not, I have a few ready here. Give me a second. Here we go. All right. Number one, the Red Sox will lose 4 out of their next 6. I think this upcoming road trip with the Cubs and the Phillies is not going to go well for them. So there's one. I do think that the Red Sox are going to trade either for a first baseman or starting pitcher Joe Ryan. There's a lot of buzz swirling around him and some of the offers that have been made to acquire him. So my gut tells me that they're going to do something, because I don't think they're going to wait till the deadline. If they have a bad week this week, they'll realize what they need and try to fix it early. And number 3, someone on the Red Sox is headed to the DL. And the reason I say that is because typically after the All-Star break, everybody's rusty. And somebody's going to get it, whether it's a pitcher or a fielder or somebody, I don't know. And, I can hear Frank now saying that I'm jinxing him, but it's typical. Somebody might get an oblique strain or just elbow, something. I don't know. It just happens. And hopefully it doesn't happen to Garrett Crochet. That's the one guy they can't afford to lose. So if I'm wrong, which is par for the predictions I make around here, hopefully it's wrong and nobody gets hurt. And if they do, I hope it's not him. So that is all I have for the predictions. That is it. That's the show. Thank you all for tuning in. Thank you all for the support and for voting in the polls and for the commentary. And make sure to catch us on YouTube. And we'll see you guys next week.